service editing. So we've got an alignment in here. Now we want to enter service for it. So we'll revisit the TBEST time periods so we remember what they are. We'll introduce the TBEST trip and schedule editing interface. We'll edit trips at the route pattern level. We'll input average vehicle speeds and travel time, and we'll do some interactive vehicle trip timeline editing, route scheduling, manually inserting trips on a timeline, copying and pasting trips to other patterns, and a statistics panel within the timeline editor, and then viewing the route schedule. So we're basically going to enter the information about the service on Route 88. So we're going to revisit these time periods just as a reminder that these are the TBEST time periods, and that we just want to reiterate that that's what the durations of them. We talked about the trip editor, and we're going to access that and use it in our tool set. But so this is really what we want to get to, is the trip editor. And this allows you to edit individual ranges of route pattern vehicle trips by time of day, but also on individual trips. So so basically this is the ability to add trips that represent your vehicle service, and then enter speeds or travel times relative to the network so that it will notice the arrival times and departure times along a pattern, the stops along the pattern. So there's a few ways to do this in terms of trip editing: listing of trips by span and trip interval in minutes. So basically you can add an interval, first trip begin time, a last trip begin time, and then an interval or headway. And then it will calculate the number of trips and enter those in for that interval, right? And so that's what this is, this add new route pattern trips, and then it will add those total trips into the timeline editor. You can also remove these ranges. So if I want to remove all of these trips, I just remove them here. And you can add them as a group. You also can do that interactively on the timeline. So this is the timeline editor. It begins in the AM. It starts at 12 a.m., goes to 12 p.m. So here's your PM designation. And then at 12 a.m. it goes to your AL trips, which bring you to 6 a.m. So it's more than 24 hours of trips. It actually goes past that and into the 6 a.m. time frame. So you can add trips at an interval. You can remove them within a range. So all of this is interactive. So I can select ranges within this timeline and delete trips or add trips, or copy them to the clipboard using this interface. So it's a very visual way to do trip editing. You can also copy and edit trips using the clipboard. So so there's copy and paste functions where you can copy and paste to the clipboard and put them onto other route patterns, the trips that you're copying. You also have a nudge tool that will push all of your trips on a particular pattern for the day up or down by an interval. And that interval in this case is 30 minutes. So you could push all the trip start times by 30 minutes on a particular pattern. So if you have a very complex schedule and you want to edit it, but really all you want to do is change the start time of it. Well, if you try to do that for all the trips individually, it would take forever. But with this little nudge tool, it will just nudge all the trips. And so they'll all have an incremental movement up or down in time for their start time. You can also copy current service trips to multiple route patterns. So if you have trips that basically all of your service is going to have 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. trips at 1 hour headway, you can digitize that once and then copy that into all of your route patterns. All right, and then you have a speed. So this is where you input either a speed or a travel time for the route pattern, for the entire route pattern. The route speed will update travel time and vice versa. So if you enter, a number in travel time, it will update the speed and vice versa. The service day selection will display specific time periods to speed and travel to edit. Yeah, so if you select a weekday, then you get the AM peak, off peak, PM peak, and night. If you select Saturday in the service day, it will just be one number that would be all day. Pattern level, speed, travel time edits are pushed to the route pattern segments. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated because your route pattern segments each can carry individual speeds locally for each segment. So if you have 4 segments along a pattern that came in from the GTFS and they're broken up at time points, and each one has a different speed, but you come into this interface and you change the overall speed, let's say by 2 or 3 miles per hour. So what that does is it doesn't just push down the same speed to all of the segments. It looks at each one and calculates it proportionally so that the speed is distributed to all, but they keep their same general speeds relative to the change. So it doesn't wipe out all the individual speeds locally on the segments. It just proportionally changes that. All right. Okay, in the trip editor, you can also view the route schedule. So there is a button here to show the schedule. So when you hit the schedule button, it's going to actually load into your trip editor all of the trips on all patterns in that direction. So if you have a very complicated schedule with lots of patterns, what you really want to see are all of the trips all together throughout the day, right? So normally you would do one pattern at a time, but whenever you hit the schedule button, it actually pops the schedule up, and then you can use the schedule to navigate between patterns. So this little arrow in front of these trips means that that is the active pattern that's in the trip editor. And so they're shown as blue, and this has this little, arrow on it. The ones that aren't active in the schedule are shown here in gray, and they don't have the little arrow. And that's these trips at the end of the day that are using this other pattern. So essentially, it allows you to see all of the trips on all of the patterns in a certain direction for a route so that you can get the full context of all of the trips that are being made. Okay. Excellent. Any questions on the trip editor? We're going to go through it and demonstrate it, etc. So, okay. Excellent. So, yes, let's go to our service editor. So everyone have this particular exercise, step 1. All right. So we're going to activate Route 88 westbound, and which is already active here. I've already saved it, so that's important. And everything else is okay. Maybe we'll clear the selection. I don't really want any stops selected necessarily, and I really don't want any segments selected, so we'll clear those. So these are the 2 clear buttons that just clear the selection. We don't want to see it in the map. We'll also remove our background routes. We don't really want that anymore. We've already digitized our route, so we'll just take it away. So now we're just left with our route pattern. So let's right click on this and go to Edit Pattern Service. All right, so what you see is that here is our westbound alignment. We start at Weimer Hall. We end up here at Lawton Childs. And so this is the information about the stops that are along it, and then basically begin and end points. So what we want to do is add a trip range. And so we can add that through here. So we can press this button and say, I want to begin a first trip at 6 a.m. And basically, whenever you use this tool, it's best to use these arrows. If you try to input a number, it doesn't like it very much. So just bear that in mind. We've worked with, the developers and so forth to get that to work right, and it doesn't work right. So you have to use a little arrow key. So let's do 8:45, and you hold it down, it will go up quickly. So there's 8:45, so 6 a.m. to 8:45 a.m. And we want to make this 15 minutes, so the interval will be 15 minutes, so that's 12 trips. So we've added that in. So those are our trips from 6 a.m. to 8:45 that we've added. Now we want to add another interval. And this time it's going to be from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And it's going to be a 30-minute headway or interval. There's our 30-minute trips. Excellent. All right, so this time we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to use the timeline to do this. So, so what we want to do is zoom into the timeline, and we're going to zoom to the PM extent. So that takes us into, we start at 12 p.m., we end at basically 11:59 p.m. So we want to actually input the other 15-minute peak headway from 3 p.m. to 5:45. So what we can do instead of using the trip range is we can hover over 3 o'clock, and we can click and hold and drag, and it will select a range, and that range will end at 5:45. So so we actually started at 2:59. So let's just switch that to 3 p.m. to 5:45, and our interval will be 15 minutes. And so we can do it that way as well. So we can interact with the timeline to do that. So likewise, we can go from 6 to 8. So we'll start the next interval at 6 o'clock and go to 8 o'clock. And this one will be also at 30 minutes. Say, okay, so here is our additional route structure, right? So what's nice about this is you can actually use the little arrow keys to pan, so you can see a little more detail. And so that's nice. Okay, so so what we want to do is edit the travel time on the top right to 15 miles per hour. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one step I missed. The other way to actually add another stop is to just go right on top of a time and click, and it will add a stop at that time. So anywhere along the timeline, I can add a stop, and it will pick it up. You can see it adding it into this list up here. And if I want to remove that, I can. From this list, I can also just kind of hover on top of it, and it'll say click to delete trip at 9:01, which I want to do. So we've edited that and taken it off. So let's save this. It's going to say we need some speeds. So let's do that. Let's add, for the AM peak and PM peak, we're at 15 miles per hour. And for the off peak, we're at 17 and 15, and then another 17. So this is our speeds, and what it's doing is it's calculating the travel time automatically based on the speed and the distance, right? So we are going to have our travel times for the entire westbound portion of the route. Okay, so let's save this, and we're going to, you notice when I saved it, it automatically pushed the in-vehicle travel times down into the segments, and also, I don't know if you all are viewing this or not, but into my stops panel. So it shows the 12 arrivals in the AM peak, which is what we input, and the headway and the in-vehicle time that calculated based on the stop-to-stop speeds. Okay, so let's also now look at copying the trips to the clipboard. So let's do that. So we have this tool to copy service trips to the clipboard. Let's click that. They automatically go to the clipboard. And then let's switch from westbound to eastbound. And we'll use the paste to overwrite existing trips. And that pushes the trips into the eastbound direction. And we're going to use the same speeds. We're going to be at 15 and 17, 15 and 17. So you can see the travel time does differ from the patterns. This one is shorter, so the travel time is less. All right, so let's save this. And we can view the schedule from here. So we have our route 1076, which is our first stop here. We didn't give it a description, so it just uses the stop ID. And then Westgate Plaza and Weimer Hall. So the 34 minutes that we calculated for our AM peak, you can see it starts at 6 and then ends at 6:34. So that's our 34 minutes of travel time for the first trip, and for the second trip, third trip, etc. So basically what we've done is we've built a schedule based on the trip start times and the speeds by time of day. So we have this schedule built in. And as I said, you can refine this if you want to have different speeds on different segments. You can certainly do that. And that's what the GTFS does when you bring it in. Okay. All right, so there are a few more tools about this that are interesting. You can export the map data. You can copy this to the clipboard, the map to the clipboard. I mentioned the nudge tool. So if we were going to actually do some editing to this where we wanted to, change this from a 6 a.m. start time in the eastbound direction to a, let's say, 6:15 start time. Well, if we wanted to do that, then we would have to change all of these trip start times individually or kind of redo all these trips. But if we want to, we can use the nudge tool and change this to 15 minutes and then just hit this nudge, and then it will push all of the trips out 15 minutes so that you don't have to make any edits other than the nudge, right? So a few more edit items. So let's just keep that edit. We like that one, so we'll save it. You can remove trips on the timeline. So if I want to say, well, I want to get rid of all of these trips, actually all of these trips out here, we can say yes, and we can delete them. So it's not just adding, you can remove them as well. You can also say, I want to copy just a certain grouping of trips to the clipboard. I want to copy those to the clipboard. I want to paste those into another route or another route pattern. So that's also a possibility. And as you get into route editing and trip editing, that's the kind of thing that comes in useful and saves you a lot of time, because if you have to keep redigitizing trips on different routes, that can be very time consuming. So all these copies and pastes can be very helpful for your trip editing and building your networks and your service. So anything else, Matt, relative to trip editing on this?
Besides showing the statistics on the right.
Oh yeah, okay. So what you see here is the number of revenue service trips that are currently visible in the timeline. So as I mentioned, we can zoom to a trip extent. So let's say we go to AM peak. You can see that the revenue trips change down to 18 because there are 18 trips in the AM peak, and the number of revenue miles and hours that cost for the trips that are in the AM peak, or at least in the AM, not AM peak, and the percent of total hours. So there's actually, this is half of the service for the route exists before 12 p.m. And the stop count here is also helpful as well. How many stops are on this particular route? And as you scroll, you will see that those numbers change as you scroll on the timeline. So it's a nice way to see how many trips are at a certain time. So if you didn't want to count, let's say, hey, after 3 p.m., how many trips do I have? Well, you can just go and say, well, here's 3 p.m. You can even do a zoom. So if I want to zoom in on the timeline editor and I want to start right here and go to there, then it will zoom into that. And there are 13 trips with 111 revenue miles and 9.7 revenue hours and the cost, et cetera, right? So it's just a handy way to do some statistics referencing about your service at certain times of day on this alignment. Okay. All right, so let's say, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because I did some deletions. But what I want to do is come to our Route 88, and I want to double click on Route 88 here in the routes panel, and I want to bring up the route summary, right? So we mentioned this route summary early on this morning when we were looking at service on the routes that came in from the GTFS. But this is the one that we digitized, and we want to see some information about it that we digitized. So we know this is the alignment we digitized, the service span in hours, the revenue service trips, the headways that we digitized, the round trip travel time, the speeds, the vehicles, miles, and cost for the entire route for a service day. You notice we didn't enter any service for Saturday and Sunday, but you certainly can do that. Just if you want to shortcut it, you go to this route pattern service button, and then that will take you to either one of the patterns. And then you switch to service day and you go to Saturday. Actually, let's go back to weekday and we'll just copy these trips and we'll go to Saturday and we'll paste them. And let's say that on Saturday, instead of running 15-minute peak trips, we actually want to run 30 minutes all day. So I'm just going to switch these all to 30s. And that will switch all of my times. And if there gets to be one in here that's a little bit wacky, then we'll just click on it and remove it. And maybe we'll fill this in at, right there in the middle. Something like that. So yeah, so I just edited the trips for Saturday, and then I'll give this a speed of, let's say, maybe 18 miles per hour on Saturday. And we can save that, and let's copy these trips and post them to the westbound, paste them in. And we want these actually to start at 6 o'clock. So we're going to take this to 15 and push this up to 6. So now this direction starts at 6 a.m. and we're going to do 18 miles per hour again and hit save. And when we come back, we're going to close this and close this. And now automatically we have in our Saturday summary, we have our service span, our trips, our headway, etc., all our statistics for Saturday. And we can do the same for Sunday. So the summary kind of acts as a portal and a console to get to other tools that you can use to edit and summarize the data so that whenever you're finalizing your route service and when you're editing, you can always check all the statistics in several ways. So this is one way to check, hey, did I digitize this correctly? Here's the view of it. Here's all my service. Here's my headways. Here's my speeds, etc. Does this look right? So that's a great way to check all of it in its full context. Okay, so let's close this and save it. Great, and we'll close the scenario. And let's run the model for this. So basically, before we run the model, let's go and look at our validation collections. So if we go to manage, right click on our TDP 2030, which is what we just edited. And we go to validation and manage route collections. You can see that we have our 88 out here as a new route. That's good. Our 76 came in as a new route, right? So that was a new fall route, so that's fine. So both of those are in good shape. There's where they should be. We do have Route 1 that's sitting here that really, no, I'm sorry, we've selected Route 1, so that's fine. Route 2, etc. So we're good there. Everything looks okay here because as it says right here, new routes should not be in a collection. And if they're in this list of available routes, they're not in a collection. This says routes in a collection. So if you select the route, that's the route patterns that are in the collection. So that's fine. So these are, when the model gets run, these are going to get average adjustment factors applied to them based on their route type and mode. And so they will be averaged, and that's what we want because they are new routes. Excellent. So the next step is just to run the model. And so we'll right click on it and go to ridership forecasting model. And we're at the TDP 2030, all of our time periods, all of our defaults are there, so we're good. And the only step is to run this. And so essentially, that's where we wanted to be at the end of the day today, is to have a valid model run for our 2030 TDP so that we can start in tomorrow analyzing the results. So today has been a day of data building. So we started from our downloads, our data downloads from FDOT. We added some information to those networks that FDOT didn't have, that only maybe some local application or users would have. And then we used the observed ridership to validate the transit system and the model. And then we created application scenarios from there for the current service in the fall of 2021, our no build application for 2030, and then we've added this new route for our 2030 TDP new routes specification. So what we would get out of this is a ridership estimation that would then could be included in your TDP. And we're going to look at that tomorrow, but we're also going to look at a lot of other applications that you can use TBEST for to fulfill your TDP requirements. So, so with that, I think if everyone has a model run going, you can just let it run, and when it completes, that's good. We'll just pick up there tomorrow morning at 8:30. Matt and I will be on at 8 o'clock in the morning, so that if you have any questions or you have issues installing TBEST or getting to run, etc., or other issues, we can address that directly rather than trying to do it through the chat or the breakout sessions. So we'll be available tomorrow morning to do that. If you're not going to be here tomorrow, we would like for you to review the session if you would. So I'm going to send a link through the chat for the training evaluation form. If you would fill that out, I'll send it out again tomorrow after the session. And so you can fill it in there as well. But I will put that in the chat right now. So with that, any other questions on the day's activities? So I just sent the chat. Okay. Well, thanks to everyone for hanging in there. We can actually, if we wanted to open it up at this point for any conversation, I could unmute everyone, and if you have anything to say, we could talk it out right now. So I'll just do that. If you want to say something, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll talk to you in the morning. So have a good evening.
Rodney, I think Miguel still had a problem with running his model, so he might stick around perhaps. If anyone else had any other questions, you can unmute yourself now. Sorry for the, we got through that a little bit quicker than we thought we probably would. So we have 10 minutes.
I don't think anyone will complain about the 10 minutes.
Well, I had to skip a few steps, but I didn't, I was able to add Route 88, but it was not showing under collections. Is that,
So did you add route patterns to Route 88?
what is a route pattern? I added segments.
Oh, so you did a route pattern segments.
Yeah.
And it's not showing under available collections.
Correct. Under validation. I mean, I know that I had to skip the whole 2030 because I had to reinstall it, but
Curious.
it's not showing under validation route collections. But it's showing on my routes map. Sidebar.
Okay. Matt, can you see his screen?
No. Would you mind sharing your screen, Miguel?
Sure.
And okay.
Again, I'm using fall 2021 because I had to reinstall the whole software. So I added this segment to fall 2021. Here it is, 88. But I think that since it was a new segment, I thought you mentioned that it would show us missing under validation, right? It should show here.
Yes.
Can you double click on? Can you close that and double click on the Route 88 eastbound? Yeah, double click on that. Okay. Did you save
Journey
this?
service.
How
Right
do I
click on
set?
it. Right click on it and do
Uh-huh.
edit pattern service. Okay. So that's good. And then switch to the westbound. Okay, that's fine. Okay, close this. Save the scenario. The upper
Is
left.
that here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I did not do that. Let me write it down. Save. All right, and try again.
Yeah, let's try it again. So it's still not there. Seen this come up before. Miguel, close TBEST and let's open it up again. Yeah, just close. Well, don't close it that way. That's all right. You had saved it. It's fine. Just open it up again.
Okay.
Start menu.
It's loading on my other screen.
Oh. Okay, and then yeah, go to transit systems, go to that, and then scenarios, and right click on fall 2021 and select validation. Okay. You're all right. That's fine.
Should I close the scenario before clicking validation?
Let's just see if it's there. Right click on it and go to validation and manage routes and collections. That
No.
is strange.
Now
It's
I
almost
did.
like it could be somewhere else, like in another collection. So close the scenario. So over on the right side.
Yeah, it's not showing here anymore. So it could be.
Well, go to Route 88 over on the list of routes.
Yeah. Oh, it disappeared. It's not here.
There's
So that's
something.
why I was.
Did you set all the permissions locally on your machine? Because
To read only?
no, to not be read-only. Um, because the C TBEST directory, you need to have read-write access to that folder on every folder.
Right. Matt, you saw me. Did I miss something?
Go back to your CTBEST. I'm pretty sure you checked on not read only.
Seems like it
Oh,
applies it back again.
Well, go
Oh,
to,
okay.
wait, hold on, do that again. Go back to that.
Go back to
To
here.
your security. Yes, that.
Yeah, but I think I need to close the program in order to
Well, go to
uncheck.
properties. We'll just check it out. Go to properties.
Yeah.
Go to security. And you're a user, right?
Yeah.
Go to users, not authenticated users. That one.
Mm.
Okay, so you have read and execute. You don't have write. And I think that's part of the problem here.
Okay, so hit edit.
If you can, I mean, if it'll let you, we'll see what happens. Do full control. Oh, right.
Users.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry.
Could it be because of Windows Defender was flagging the app?
It's possible. It's certainly possible. Um,
Let's see.
so is
Right
this, do you
access.
have that kind of permissions to make that adjustment? Or does your IT?
I'm an admin,
Oh, okay. Well, then that's
but
great.
I mean I still have IT has a lot of control over this.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so yeah, I think part of the issue here is that it wasn't allowing certain rights to that directory, which was
Okay.
causing some problems.
All right, so I
So
guess I'll redo everything and then come back with questions tomorrow.
no, what we'll do is we'll just send it to you. So we already
Okay.
have it completed. Everything that's done, and you can just pick up tomorrow with
Okay.
that. So you can delete your two Gatorville Miguels,
Yeah.
and let me create an export file that you can bring in.
yeah, Rodney, actually, that's what I did earlier.
Oh, did you? Okay.
But I only got him up to the validation, but you were doing it as you went along, so
Yeah. So let me
you'll just get Rodney's version. Yeah, sorry, Miguel, I didn't know that
Okay.
the write permissions were on in the security tab. That's definitely happened to me before when installing on a new
Gotcha.
TBEST on a new machine. But that
Yeah,
would
it's
also explain why the model wouldn't run for you, or
yes.
it just seemed like it was, it wasn't allowing you to access that.
All
Okay.
right.
So are you able to read Google Drive? Are you able to get files from Google Drive?
Yeah, I can open links from Google Drive and SharePoint.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll send you a Google Drive link. And what you'll get is a TDS file, the distribution file. So it's probably what Matt sent you. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so you're familiar with how to bring that in, and then
Mhm.
it will have everything in it. Now you can go and play, and if you want to run and test on things, that's fine. But with your new permissions to make sure they work. But
Okay.
this will get you to the point where you're up to speed with the training.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
All right, have a nice evening.
Thanks.
Hey, Rodney, how's it going?
Hey.
Good job. Good job.
Oh, thanks.
It
Yeah.
went well, I think.
What's that?
I think it went well. Should probably stop recording, probably.
I think I did. No, I didn't. Okay, well, that's fine. Better on than off. So yeah, I think that went really well. And you know, I was I was a little concerned when we didn't get as far as I wanted to in the morning, but it seemed to all work out, and you know, hopefully
Well,
it did. Who knows? You know, you don't know the feedback because you can't really talk to them a whole lot, but
yeah.
it's actually
And it's
probably better because it keeps things moving and there's not as many distractions by a single person.
unfortunately, Miami-Dade had that Citrix issue, so I
Yeah.
never saw an email from them.
Yeah, yeah,
Some of them still hung in there, but I think some people left, so I don't know.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I'm not sure what to do about that, you know.
it's a
I'm a
very unique
Citrix
situation.
person, so I know that um
She said that she can only open ArcMap by going to Arc catalog and opening ArcMap. Is that crazy?
it is crazy. I've never
So
heard that.
I don't know what to do. I think also it says meeting recording is still in progress. So maybe we should just end it and regroup tomorrow or something that you want. Is there anything else you want
I
to
have to
talk?
work a lot on these slides for tomorrow.
Okay.
I haven't looked at them, so I have to go through all of them. And I mean, there's not nearly as many, so that's good. But I doubt that we can fill the full day tomorrow, you know.
Um, maybe we can open it up for discussion. I don't know. Tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. It's just like we have a lot of time and I want to hear what people are thinking.
hmm Yeah, so I'll have to think about that tonight, what I might be able to add with all the different slides I have from different places. Um, but yeah, I was thinking this would, you know, be a little slower than it was, but it ended up being just right. So that's always good.
Yeah, I thought it went well. I was answering a lot of questions like through private messages and
Oh, we were, okay.
yeah, they didn't want to. It's like they didn't want to ask like the whole group,
Yeah,
and I had to say, "Do you mind if I ask the whole group this?" You know,
okay. Yeah,
so
I kind of figured that out in the interim, you know, because there weren't a lot of questions, and I was thinking, well, what's going on here? And then I was thinking, okay, yeah, it's probably personal.
cool. All right, well, take a break and let me know if you need anything tonight. I need to catch up on some other schoolwork. Um,
No, really, okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
just I was gonna do it yesterday, but I had to take my sister to the hospital, so
yeah.
um,
Okay,
very
well, let's get through this tomorrow, and you know, hopefully you'll be all right to do your
okay. Yeah, I
stuff.
thought it went well. I thought there's a lot of stuff that I helped with today, so that was good.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Thanks for your help. Really appreciate it. I think it will well too. So we'll talk tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
All
Roger.
right, see ya.
Take it easy.
Yeah, you
Bye.
too.